Did you have a public comment section on here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With you.
I asked the mayor for an executive session regarding pending litigation
Public comment section on here.
and the public safety. Okay, you're all set.
Cool.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Common council meeting for public safety for May 17th, 2021. Roll call. Councilor Gibbs is here. Councilor Talon? I am here. Councilor Moore?
Here.
Mayor Rosenbach?
Here.
Okay, item number 1 on the agenda is approval of minutes from April 19th, 2021. I'll take a motion in a second.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any deletions or edits of any kind? I don't have anything to add. Do we have to make another motion to move to the agenda?
No.
No, okay, so that will be moved to the agenda. Okay, item number 2, building inspector 2.1, discussion of permit reports.
Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
Good. It's good to be in person here.
Hey, Joe.
Okay, so permit reports, I just want to come up with a year-to-date, just kind of show you where we're at, and construction is booming right now. We've got year-to-date 307 permits, which is substantially more than any of the last 5 years year-to-date. Double some of those years. That falls in tune with our total fees that we collected. So even with the high price of materials and the short list of contractors that are available to get a lot of stuff.
If we could just go through 2.2, which is monthly violations, proactive and called in, and environmental registry. Thank you right here. That's a feature.
Sure. So year-to-date violation reports. So our proactive patrol reports, we've got a total of 118 issues that we dealt with. 107 have been resolved, 11 are in progress. Whereas we have to date 110 citizen complaints. 96 have been resolved, 14 are in progress. As far as the rental registration, we've gotten some little resistance from a couple of people, but for the most part, I think it's going exactly how we suspected it would go to this point in our first year trying to get it off the ground.
So are you able to be handling all of the paperwork and the workload and this? I mean, is that what you mean? Everything's going the way expected?
Yeah. So, yeah, the registration forms come in with the payment. We got to process that all, put it all into the units. In fact, we actually have to pay. We have to give a refund to a couple of you because they actually overpaid. So. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Keeping up with the process of just all the stuff coming in.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Supervisor Command?
How many people have we got signed up?
I think it's in the neighborhood of 70,
Mike?
something like that. And that counts for properties, buildings, not apartments, but buildings.
Including some of the bigger buildings that we do, the bigger rental units that we do have in our phase owner paperwork. Those folks have submitted their fees and their applications for the rental registry.
It seems like some of the little people, people who have like one building, this may have snuck up on them, but we're working with it.
It's good.
So I did have a conversation with the mayor last week, and we've been in contact with each other, and I've, we've been back and forth by emails and so forth regarding some of the violations and so forth. And I asked the mayor if 3 of us could have a meeting soon, not imminent, but to talk about existing code and if we think the code needs to be updated to, to give you the ability to address issues that you can't. So I'll be hoping to schedule that with the mayor and with you. Like I said, not imminent, but it's something I would like to have that opportunity to discuss with you. You've seen the emails back and forth that we've been having, so.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, I would probably be helpful as a list of examples.
Mm-hmm. Well,
what we think falls through the cracks. I mean, what we don't have is we don't have a code that deals with aesthetics, color of paint, different stuff like that. But in most cases, it looks like a violation is a violation. Or the property maintenance code of the building code addresses almost all of that stuff. Right. But every now and again, we'll find something that, I found something last year where somebody mowed the lawn and the grass was on the sidewalk. And that obviously looks like something that needs to be dealt with, but I couldn't find a code section that addressed that. I mean, I got them to keep it up, but if it comes to us having to address it, force them to do it. So every now and again, something like that comes up. Yeah, there's something.
Yeah, because we understand that there are restrictions to what you can and can't address, especially on property and so forth. So, like I said, I asked the mayor for that meeting, and I'm hoping we can set that up soon.
Yeah. I'm certainly game for it. I worked with Dean several times on this. There's specific reasons why we can be on people's property. A bona fide complaint, an inspection cycle that's required by the state, permit inspection. So some people think we can just walk anywhere and look at anything.
Right, and you can't. No. Anybody else have any questions for Joe? Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Sure.
Okay, number 3, 3.1, discussion of people retirement staffing report.
So in the packet of information everybody received, there is a payroll report from Plattsburgh City Police Department, which outlines about 34% of their payroll has been used to date. There's 37% of the year has passed already, so they're doing well. Some of this is also because there have been resignations with no backfills. I believe at the September academy, there will be about 4 cadets potentially that would have the potential to fill in spots which are vacant at this point.
In September, you said?
Yeah, that's the notion that there will be an academy in September. Overtime report, the pie chart that you got here, with the overtime total for the year equaling about $47,000. There has been about $5,000 of that's been reimbursed through partner programs as well, but that budget remains about 65% available to date. Water information, as also included in the packet of information. You will see that there have been about 175 arrests to date, 4,500 items on the water. And Captain can kind of extrapolate what each of those could be if you are all interested.
Sure, I'm interested.
Well, what specifically?
Anything.
The water, the arrests,
I don't unfortunately have a breakdown of where each one of these was, but currently, as of today's date, so year to date, these are our numbers. That waters have calls for service. They are when the phone rings, we we respond. Cases require a investigation, incident report be filed. And the arrests are either a penal law, local law, anywhere from a violation level to a felony arrest, so they would not include traffic tickets. But next time I can actually come with a little more detailed report request.
Yes, I would like that.
Okay.
One thing that Captain and I spoke about today is the implementation of the blotter, as well as re-implementation of the blotter. That was some technology that got lost in the upgrade of their internal system, as well as the transition to a website. So Captain and I spoke today about going back to taking a look at what it would take to reinstitute that automatic blotter. He'll do some work over the next month and come back with a report on what it's going to take. And it's going to cost some money, but I think it's worth the transparency and the reporting back to the community on what's going on in our community.
Okay, and the parking violations bureau report? Have that in our packet as well.
Yeah, so that's a pretty dense, or it's a pretty dense, I should say. It's about 3 or 4 page report on the types of parking tickets and parking violations that have been issued this year. I would appreciate the committee did note that last year, one of the reasons why the parking violations were down for April is because our parking attendant was furloughed during that time, so it was down significantly, about a little more than half what it is this year. But you will see that the year-to-date totals were hovering right up at that $20,000 in parking ticket. I don't want to call it revenue. It's not revenue. It's parking ticket violation. Those expenses that are associated with that with those violations.
All right, item 2.5, executive order 203 plan implementation.
Okay, so so far since Executive Order 203 took effect with the passing resolution by the council, we have hired middle management. We have 2 lieutenants that have been promoted. Lieutenant Trombley is currently here with us tonight. I can go through and kind of give you updates on a point-by-point basis.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So obviously that was a huge part of this, being able to implement and restore these positions within the department. And if you were to ask them, Lieutenant Trombley and Brody are very busy and doing things that we've been talking about for several months. The educational aspect of that point, since the beginning of the year, we've implemented 15.5 hours of training pertinent or relevant to Governor's Order 203, 4 hours of anti-bias training and 2 hours of de-escalation. We've also implemented, we've completed a full departmental range, which is just got finished up, and that included the push for the updated training for any use of force policy for all of these members. In the next 60 days, we have CPR, taser, domestic violence, and some updates that we're going to be pushing out to all the officers as well. And now that we have the 2 lieutenants have been made as administrators in our police department account, and they are collaborating with me to determine the remainder of the year's schedule. So the hope is that as we move forward with this, we'll be able to develop learning plans that we can put out for the entire year and be able to kind of watch the results of these as we put them. So it's actually really good thing. Our lieutenants that we've done outreach with our partner agencies such as South Domestic Violence, Behavioral Health Services, County Mental Health. We're back involved in these meetings, which is one of the big talking points that I reiterated over and over again during our meetings. We are working very closely with the Department of Mental Health and the Director of Community Services to develop these mechanisms to assist, identify the folks that are in need of early intervention. And we actually have a meeting tomorrow with the Director of Community Services and Mental Health to oversee that.
So these relationships were not, they weren't strong before now, or how would you describe the change?
Well, our presence is, I mean, the best word for it. I mean, years past, we would have individuals go to these meetings and to develop these relationships with the folks in these other agencies. The last couple of years, we simply haven't been able to, haven't met people in middle management that were able to break away from whatever they're doing to attend these meetings. And everybody has importance in their role. Sending a sergeant or a patrolman to these meetings meant taking them off of their focus to do so. I would go when time would allow, the chief would go when time would allow. Now we actually have these lieutenants as part of their assignment is their daily punch list is to attend these meetings as just part of their daily job. So it's something that was really overdue. Being invited, again, I've said these names will know what they do, but kind of mental health, addictive services, stop domestic violence, stop DUI, all of these different groups bring value and having our presence in these meetings and our collaboration along with these folks is effective.
So the use of force policy that was adopted last year by the police department, you said that the training was complete on that?
It is now.
Okay.
Yes. And that's going to be ongoing. I mean, it's the initial portion of the training. We did roll out a use of force policy with no training for several months, which is not ideal. And as we continue with our training protocol and our training schedule, we will be providing refresher training, for lack of a better term. But with every use of force type training will come additional training with the use of force policy. And with that being said, we do have a demo that's going to be taking place on Wednesday for a new product called Bowler Wrap, which is an alternative, less lethal type of product that we can use. So it's an alternative to taser, it's an alternative to oopsie spray. And essentially what it is a, well, I can't even explain it. So essentially what it is it's a wrap that's deployed by an officer to incapacitate a person without the use of a chemical or without the use
How does that work?
of
We're gonna test it on some of the counselors on Wednesday. So open invitation, thank you.
9 a.m. on Wednesday. It's out there, check it out. Now it's deployed from a medium of some sort, and it's like something Batman would use. It would
I was going to say something from the Marvel comics
yeah,
there.
it is. It's has someone flex up instead of having to use an electrical weapon or a oral C spray or less lethal options such as an impact device. It's a demo that we're interested in just to explore that option, and that's going to be taking place on Wednesday.
When was that?
Wednesday, yes.
When?
Sorry, 9 a.m. So correctly. So moving forward, transparency and accountability. We have myself, Lieutenant Trombley, and Karate have developed a department feedback form. I spoke quite a bit about this during our meetings, and for lack of any other purpose, we wanted to have something out there in the world for people to give us their feedback, give us their opinion. Compliments, complaints, how was your experience in the Glasgow Police Department? We've developed a written form that we're going to be implementing citywide. We're going to have drop boxes, locations in this all community center, police department, and potentially other areas that people can leave these suggestions or these feedback forms. And we're also going to have an online presence with these forms. We've developed those forms. I provided the mayor with a copy just to review. And it's my plan to implement those very soon. We've also, to kind of build on the mayor's point with the water reports, we have hired a consultant to do an assessment of our IT capabilities of the police department and our shortfalls. And that individual is currently going through our hardware or software or networking in conjunction with Simquest and our city IT to identify the areas that we need help or we need to update things. One of those.
I do want to capitalize on that, because one thing that when Captain and I spoke about is that it has got to be in conjunction with the work that we're already doing. Can't be, it's got to be done together. These folks have very specific IT needs to follow guidelines and certification processes that if they don't have those pieces in place, that we lose certification for their department. So we need to have those things in place. And this part of what we talked about was re-implementing the blotter processes as part of this work that this person's doing.
And yeah, the blotter process was one of the specific items that has a conversation with some individual about, and we're going to have, I will have an idea of exactly what's going to take to prepare that service in the next few weeks.
Okay.
And finally, relationships, community trust. We do have an event that's scheduled for the 18th of June. It's going to be taking place on the lawn in front of the former rec center. Community-oriented public services. And essentially, it's a demo. It's where we're going to set up booths along with other area first responders, including other police agencies, fire departments, EMS, federal agencies, and we're going to do a community event. It's going to be being organized by Officer Miller, and we have mental health agencies, we have medical health agencies that are going to be coming by. We're going to try to do a car seat check as well, a car seat event, and flexible helmet event. And that's going to be on June 18th. And finally, one of the many policies that we've talked about when we began that is our to increase citizen interactions with our police officers. And one of those methods to do that was to increase the number of directed foot patrols. And I say directed, meaning that we are meeting regularly, regularly now with our supervisors, and we are pushing out this agenda to ensure that when our officers are conducting foot patrols, that they're directed, and we will begin to obtain information and be able to track information in our progress with our police and city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That was really great. It was a great update.
Congratulations to the lieutenants.
Absolutely.
So 3.6 is introduction.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Is Lieutenant Browning is not?
No, he couldn't. Sorry, he could not make it tonight. But I'll make sure that he stops by next time.
Yes, I'm.
Yeah, absolutely. I did have a pleasure speaking with both Lieutenant Tremblay and Lieutenant Brody on just the transition, and I certainly appreciate having you both on and the work that I foresee you all doing and already started doing in the community. I also had the pleasure of going out to the range with Jared not too long ago, so it was fun. But yeah, I appreciate it. Certainly appreciate the council supporting the local law for middle management to support not only just the stability and sustainability of these departments, but also the succession planning that is much needed for specifically for departments like fire and police. And I believe that Captain covered a number of the special initiatives that the police department is taking on, including rebuilding those relationships, those much needed relationships with mental health services and community services that we have, as well as the June 18th event that's being sponsored by the community center.
Yes, I agree. Okay, let's move on to number 4, and 4.1 draft resolution authorized travel request on June 3rd through the 4th, 2021. I have a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Can we get, a brief description of this?
Sure.
Our probationary firefighters are graduating from work. So requested on there what you see as on June 3rd, I have 2 people that need to go down and test it at the same location for candidate physical ability test, which I need to certify for their 229 for civil service. So I go down for that, and instead of driving back to 6.5 hours and turning around and driving back 6.5 hours, it's 2 the night. And then go to the 10. They're doing the graduation in 2 different blocks. So I've got 2 graduations that I need to attend.
Okay. And, the cost for this, where is it being taken from?
I would have to talk to my secretary. She was the one that did all of that.
Mayor, do you know?
No, stop.
So we'll need that answer by Thursday, so council can vote on that. Any other questions about the item? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Again? Moved. Okay, number 4.2, payroll retirement and staffing report. Do we have a printout of that?
I don't believe we have a printout of it. No, okay.
No, we don't. I don't want to Richard's April report for that. Looks like regular payroll is tracking right where it should. The overtime's up a little bit due to some retirements and unforeseen absences that needed to be covered. So we're getting those with these new recruits that are coming back. They will cover the 4 retirements that we've had. Our 4th one will be the end of the month. We're anticipating up to 4 more vacancies before the end of the year.
How many retirements have you had to date this year so far?
As at the end of this month, I'll have 4. And when we did the budgeting, in June of last year, we anticipated 2. I may have 4 more, it may be a total of 8 retirements this year.
And are those retirees, most of those the rank of captain or?
No, well, we had a lieutenant retire, we have a captain that may retire coming up, but we have a lot of the senior firefighters. So there is some cost savings when we do backfill them due to different retirement tiers and percentages you have to pay, things along those lines. I'm working with the mayor right now to start working on my payroll for next year. So start anticipating what that'll be.
And so you're anticipating 4 recruits, is that what you said? That what you said? 4 recruits, you had 4 retirements, and then did you say you're anticipating 4 recruits?
We hired 4 in January, then they went down to the academy, and they're just finishing up on June 4th. So those will be put back in place for the vacancies we've had. But coming up, we believe that by October, I'll have 4 more.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Chief Wallace? Okay, we're going to move on to 4.4. Call report, ambulance fire calls to date compared to 2020.
So as of this date in 2020, we had 293 fire calls, 1,130 EMS calls. As of today, we have 334 fire calls and 1,094 EMS calls. So we're tracking right on where we were last year. Yeah.
So 334 fire calls.
334 this year.
Okay, how many of those were actual like structure fires or not every call is actual like an involved fire, right?
No, right, is from the National Fire Reporting System as of this year, we've had 7 actual. Now, there's a lot of calls for service that are very important. It's just not a fire. A lot of times you get there and you mitigate the situation before it turns into an actual fire. But last year, the total for fires was
almost 50 involved extinguishment.
Any questions for Chief Wallace about that? Okay, moving on to 4.5, discussion any special initiatives.
Yeah, so I did ask Chief Wallace to come to talk about, and this is something that Councilor Gibbs and I spoke about, the work that we're doing with Dr. Bombard regarding the level of training in the department, not only the paramedic bridge program, but also the RCI training.
Yeah.
Yep.
RSI.
Training.
Sedated inpatient.
Yep, and then also if you caught a little bit of one of the training that they're doing for confined space, that's also being done right now. CPR training for any department that may need CPR training, fire, police, lifeguards as well. So that's going to be something that we're looking at, program initiative to implement. Fire extinguisher validation, verification, I guess.
So we're going to look at being able to search all the fire extinguishers in the city and recharge them to inspections. That way, it would save all the other departments some considerable money.
Or at the very least, we could be kind of quote unquote paying ourselves to do that work. This all came from an invoice that we signed not too long ago for one of the departments to certify their fire extinguishers in their department. So I reached out to, hey, why are we doing this internally?
Okay.
Yep.
The confined space will be done this week. Then I will get with the mayor and we can start pushing it out to the businesses in the city. But that is going very well.
Okay. Anything else?
I just had one question going back. I forgot to ask it. On those 1,094 ambulance calls, were those all transports or are they?
No, that's not all transports, that's calls for service. That has an ebb and flow with it also, but we're following where we should be, tracking where we were for the last 5 years. I'm also working on, Mayor's asked for some clarification on time of day of calls, when we have the most, what day of the week we have the most. So I'm generating that report. In fact, we got the first rough draft of it. They'll go through and make sure there's no anomalies before presented to them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, section 5, community development, 5.1, discussion and draft resolution approval of lease of city recreation center by Classic YMCA. Can I get a motion and a second on that?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, we're running back into a discussion and then call it.
Oh, sorry, yep.
Yep, sorry.
Matt, can you give us a rundown of this?
Yeah, sure. So last spring, when everything shut down due to COVID, the recreation facilities were one of the first things to be shuttered. Subsequent discussion with the council during budget deliberations last year, the decision was made that the city would not be actively staffing the recreation center going forward. So we discussed how best to make use of that as to make it still available as a public resource to the members of the community. We decided to issue a request for proposals for a third-party operator to essentially lease the building and operate it in more or less the same capacity that the city had previously. So we had a number of proposals that were received. We evaluated all of them. It was deemed that the YMCA's proposal was best aligned with the interests of the city going forward. Then we commenced a pretty extended negotiation process with the YMCA. It was a bit of a moving target just because the standards for COVID were shifting all the time. So we would have a discussion with the Clinton County Health Department about what might be required to reopen the facility and have the YMCA host the activities that they were looking to host. with any additional equipment that might be required to be purchased by the city. We had an engineering analysis done of the entire building to show under the strictest of possible evaluations what might it cost us in order to get air circulation and movement back up to what the state at the time was looking for. That came in somewhere around $75,000 at a minimum. But we continue having conversations with the health department. They have the ability to exercise some discretionary authority as to recreational facilities and gymnasiums. At this point, basically, if you can satisfy the county health department as to the safety of the facility that you are looking to open, that is good enough to reopen it. So we've had a number of discussions with the health department. We've had multiple tours of the facility with them. We have a reasonable understanding as to what they would be looking for as far as additional equipment and upgrades to the facility in order to satisfy them that it's safe for the public to use it. We think that we can put all of those improvements in place for less than $5,000 at this point. That was built into the discussions with the YMCA. The structure of the lease as it stands now is it's a 12-month lease with an option to renew for another 12 months. It's $1 a month, but there's also a profit-sharing mechanism built into it, whereby all of the revenue that the YMCA, that accrues to the YMCA from their operation of the facility, we deduct all of the operational costs. If at the end of each month there's an operational surplus, that surplus will be split between the city and the YMCA keeping 60%, the other 40% being remitted to the city. The YMCA is, of course, a nonprofit, so they've had understandable concerns about not having the operation of the recreation center become a burden to their financial performance. So there was a backstop provision built into the lease agreement, whereby if that operational surplus in any given month is in the negative, where you have an operational deficit, the city would remit to the YMCA the amount of that deficit in any given month. So we built in several protections for the city in that case, where if there are 2 consecutive quarters that show operational deficits, the city would have the right to terminate the lease agreement. If there in any individual quarter is in excess of a $10,000 deficit, the city would have the right to terminate the agreement. So it protects the YMCA, but it also protects the city as to any larger than what we might be comfortable with financial obligations. But in exchange, the city gets a operational recreation center. The hundreds of people who rely on that facility for recreation, especially during the winter, will have a place to go. And we have an operator that has proven success over a number of years with its own facility. And I'll allow Justin to speak a little bit about what the YMCA has planned as far as what their programming will look like. Any other questions?
Yeah, has this changed from the last time it's come before this council?
This is actually the first time the full lease has been presented to the council. The proposal from the YMCA that was submitted last fall was submitted to council for review. At that time, all that was authorized was to have my office enter into detailed discussion with the YMCA to come to the lease agreement that's under consideration. Yep.
They'll do it from Justin.
Yep. Justin, please.
Good evening.
Well,
Mr. Mayor. There's a lot to discuss. I didn't know if there was any specific questions that you might have had. I can give a general overview to start us off if you like.
Sure.
So we're excited to be getting very close. Matt and I have been working tirelessly, as I know Dean and our attorneys as well. We think we've come up with a plan that can really open the rec center up as a branch of the YMCA and really offer some of that programming that has been missed. There's certainly a lot of amenities about the rec center that are different from other facilities in the area, including the large gym and the track, community spaces that are clearly have some space for us to spread out different classes. Our focus is really going to be in 4 key areas. We want to open that main gymnasium back up and get our pickleball players back. We also have indoor sports and basketball programs that we would certainly love to bring back. Of course, the indoor track as well. Downstairs in the community room, we will be bringing back the karate program that was there in the past, as well as having group fitness classes down there so that we can offer some additional spacing in keeping with, you know, the social distancing. Of course, all of that is starting to loosen, so that might work even better for everybody involved. We will also open up the cardio and the weight rooms down there as well. We do know that a lot of the equipment down there is antiquated, and a bunch of it will be removed prior to us opening up. But part of becoming a member will have access to our facility at Oak Street as well. So your membership will, you know, you might like pickleball in the morning, but you want to go for a swim in the afternoon or take a class. It'll all be encompassing. And allow members to have some choice into the different areas that they want to focus on. You know, we will have just a little bit over 30 days after, or if this is approved, to get everything kind of refreshed over there. We plan on, you know, coat of paint could go a long ways. We plan on doing a little bit of a refresh, some new signage out there, and just trying to bring it elevated as much as we can before we would open potentially on July 1st. That is really what our goal is. We have been doing a lot of stuff over the past year in sports down at the Oval, and offering programs throughout this pandemic is, and that is, sorry, well, I don't know if we got to leave the building or something. So, you know, it all kind of lays into a really successful plan to get people more active, and especially now, getting people to be healthy and think about wellness. So.
What are the current guidelines about being in gyms and exercise facilities in New York right now?
Yeah, so there's capacity limits that as of Wednesday are going to be lifted. They are still advising 6 feet distancing with classes. It was 10 feet at one point, so they're kind of minimalizing that. As of Wednesday, there is the mask rule that's being lifted, and YMCAs are able to decide, you know, exactly what they're going to do for the safety of members. So we're in discussion now with our partner WISE to get some best practices. But we've been running it since September. I'd like to point out that not only our WISE, but all the WISE in New York State, we've had over 4 million visits from members since September. And the rate of exposure with COVID has been 0.004%. It has been extremely low. We know that this virus is not being, that COVID is not being spread at gyms. So, so that's been really positive for people to have that confidence to kind of come back to the Y and continue, you know, with their health goals.
Justin, what's your projected membership increase if you or if and when you open the rec center?
Yeah, that's really the big what if right now, because opening up a new facility during what we've been doing is definitely, we put some numbers in the budget that are pretty conservative. Looking at, I think the best, not the best, we did a good, bad, and ugly scenario. And I think our good scenario was to have about 200 members come back to the Y. Best case scenario, and as they get better, it's less of a reimbursement from the city to kind of keep us whole. So I think that related to about 40% of what you had before. So there's definitely some room for growth in there. But it is what if. The other thing is that our plan was originally discussed back in the fall for a kind of winter opening. And as we go into the summer months, they can tend to be a little bit, you know, less of a membership drive as people are more outdoors. So I would just caution us that the first quarter that we're engaged in this, it might see a little bit more of a fluctuation than we anticipated. But as we go into the winter months and into the fall, we know that those things are gonna kick back and folks are gonna wanna, get inside again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, item 5,
Yeah,
I
you know,
didn't, sorry.
I would like to comment that, in a couple of discussions, not super thorough, but, when we talk about our parks, when we talk about recreation, it all falls into this concern about the city having a recreation department or some type of opportunity or availability for programming. You've heard it, I've heard it, our community wants programming, our community wants recreation, and then the question, for me anyway, is how does the city then provide that? We're not going to reinstate a full recreation department, we're not gonna hire back 20 people to run the rec center or the great center or anything else, but we could look at partnerships with the YMCA, and we should look at partnerships with the YMCA, with the town, with the county, other municipalities, on what that regional or that global recreation program would look like, and I believe that this is a good step in that direction.
I agree. Okay. All in favor of moving this to the agenda?
Aye.
On the council agenda? Aye. Okay. All right, so item,
5.2 and 5.5 have been withdrawn.
oh, okay,
Nice.
thank you. So 5.2 and 5.5?
5.2 through 5.5.
5.5, okay. Are those gonna appear on the Thursday agenda, second meeting? Pending poll?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, item number 6, new business. Anybody have new business for tonight? I don't have anything new. Mr. Powell, Councilor, anything new?
No, not this time.
Anything new?
Well, I just would like to thank this committee for last month at your meeting reporting on the state of the ambulance service. And we learned that the ambulance is running a $407,000 deficit for the second ambulance that we're running. And that was some concern to me. And I would ask that perhaps this committee consider preparing another report like that for year-to-date 2021. Now, we just heard from Chief Lawless that ambulance service is tracking just about like it did last year. If that's true, then that's a concern to lose another $400,000 on ambulance service. So I would ask that this committee consider having a half-year or year-to-date report in your July, please, if that's something you believe you can do. And then if it turns out that it appears as though that deficit is going to be nearly the same or even larger next year, or this year, I'm sorry, then we need to have some discussions about what to do about that. An $800,000 loss in 2 years is a large sum of money for the city of Plattsburgh, as you know. Then you were having a discussion this evening about police department recruiting, and my understanding was that 2 lieutenants were promoted, or to be promoted, with the feeling that they would not be backfilled. And I believe that's how we prepared our budget last year. So if we're going to backfill those positions, or any positions, then there has to be some way to pay for them, some way to offset the cost of those additional employees. And I would ask you to look very hard at solutions to do that. And finally, I quite often get called, I guess, an opponent of public safety, and that's not the case at all. I appreciate the work that our public safety officers do, and I would ask that we as a council continue to look for more efficient ways and better ways to run our public safety departments. I believe that we can be more efficient and have fewer officers in both fire and police. And it's not the fault of, the management of the police department if the police department is too large. And it's not the fault of the fire department if the fire department is too large. It's our fault. It's the council's fault. We fund these programs every year, and we should be very, very cognizant of what things cost and how much a single employee costs, and avoid hiring at all costs if we can, because none of us likes to do layoffs. So that concludes my comments.
Okay. Definitely discuss these with the mayor in our weekly meetings, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other new business? Any public comment? Members of the public?
Chairwoman, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss litigation.
Yes, I would second that. Can we do an all in favor for that?
Pardon?
Can we do
Yeah,
an
well, okay,
all
you
in
need to take a vote.
all in favor?
Aye. And then we can retire to the full council.
We'll cancel, go.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Do we want,
I don't think, oh, yeah, actually, yes.
No?
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. County basement?
Do we want Captain?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
okay. Like you come?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you.
Appreciate
It was nice to meet you officially.
Same. I'm a hometown guy.
Yes, you are.
Okay, good to see you. They say hi. Counselor, thanks for your efforts, honestly.
Is it okay if I shake your hand?
Absolutely.
Good to see you.
You as well. Beth, as always.
All right, good to see you.
Okay. Good luck.
We are entering from executive session, no decision was made. We have a motion to return from executive session.
Motion active.
All in favor?
Uh,
Okay. We have no further business, so with that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
And that, what time is it? 6:08, we adjourn.